Hello and welcome back to the channel. In this video we're going to be comparing Sentinel Peter B Parker original on your left to the Sentinel Peter B Parker AliExpress bootleg on your right. Now if you guys are followers of the channel, then you probably know that I've made a review for both of these guys separately. I even made a posing video for this guy, and I also tend to make a posing video for this figure as well. But in this video we're going to be comparing the two and seeing the differences and eventual similarities. But right from the start you can see the obvious difference in the height and in the tone of the color. I really enjoyed messing around with the bootleg, and this was before I got my hands on the original. Now when I have the original I can really tell the differences, not just in the heights but in the feel and the quality, you know, and the proportions of the figure. But I would still say that if you're on a budget, if you can't afford to get the original, I would still say that the bootleg is a really nice bootleg. Its articulation is smooth and you can get a lot of expressive and dynamic poses out of this KO. So there you go. That's coming from someone who really messed around with this figure and kind of knows what he's talking about. But again, this is just my opinion, of course. Now I have to mention that I made a slight modification to this KO. I swiped the existing neck peg that came on this KO with another one that I had, and I can show you this is the existing neck peg that came with this figure. It's just too short, and because of that the head was sitting too low on his shoulders. And what I did is I used a neck peg from my Mafex comic book version of Spider-Man, the bootleg one that I got also from AliExpress. And now that I have the original Mafex figure, I really can use that AliExpress bootleg for parts. And that is why I decided to use this neck peg that is much longer than the one that came with this bootleg figure. And that raised the head on this KO and kind of fixed the issue that I had with it. So if you are in the same position and you have the same issue, that was kind of my fix of that problem. And if you are in a position that you can do the same thing, there you go. That's the solution for your Peter B Parker KO. Now, as already mentioned, the proportions are obviously different between these two guys. The height is different. I feel like whoever did this KO, they had the mold of the original, but they shrunk him down a little bit. Was it because of the mold was already used so many times that it shrunk in the process? I really don't know how that production process works, but size difference is obvious here. Now we can compare the articulation of both of these figures so that you can get the idea of maybe the similarities or differences in the range of articulation on both of these guys. With keeping in mind my modification of the neck peg, this is how much both of these guys' heads can look down. This is how far they can look up. This is how far their heads can tilt to the side. And again, a better range of movement of the bootleg is because of my modification. Arms go out all the way on both of them. Both of them have a nice tilt to the side, but I feel like the original has a bit better range. Both of them crunch forward this much, and again, the original is slightly better than the bootleg one. Bending backwards you get this much, and here I feel like it's the same. And again, ignore the head movement because that's modified. Legs move out all the way on both of these guys. Here is the back and forward movement of the legs. Knees bend all the way on both of them. Feet and wrists have the same articulation, and here is the comparison of how far their elbows can bend. Now when we take a closer look at the figures and compare the details, you can see that there are differences. The original sculpt is much better. The way that the joint parts are coming together on the original is perfect, while on the bootleg you can see the gaps around the neck area, so the pieces do not connect perfectly in a way that they don't leave any gappage between. The web lines here are a bit darker than on the original. There is still some goldish paint, but the original does it much better. The logo is nicely painted, but the original looks much more precise and sharp. The original has broader shoulders than the bootleg one, and I feel like the head sculpt is a little bit different. It's not just that this is a bit smaller sculpt, but I feel like the eyes on the original are not centered in the middle of the head. You can see that the chin part is a little bit longer than the upper part of the head, while on the bootleg it feels like the eyes are in the middle of the head and the jaw and the upper part of the head have the same length. That's just how I feel. Belly piece of the original is wider than the bootleg one and maybe slightly longer. The sculpt is much nicer and the paint job as well. This kind of feels sloppy while this is all clean. You can see that both of these guys have that nice texture, but when you look at the elbow joints, these are kind of messy while it's all clean on the original. And look at the way that the upper part of the arm ends here at the joint. It kind of curves out much more than the original. The original is practically straight, so this obviously looks much better than this. Legs of the bootleg look pretty good in comparison to the original, but again, webbings are darker on the bootleg. Feet are similar, but these silver pins for the toe joint articulation are poking out, while on the original they are tucked in and are not as visible as they are on the bootleg. Here is the back of both figures, and while the Spidey symbol on the bootleg is nicely sculpted and painted, you can see that there is some splotchiness in the color here. This red color is going too low in comparison to the original, so that it touches the Spidey symbol, while on the original you can see that there is a little bit of space, the blue part that goes between the upper red part and the spider symbol. Now let's compare their accessories. We'll start off with the alternate heads, and I'll try to go as fast as I can through all of them. On the left we see the original head, and this is the AliExpress bootleg one. They are pretty much similar, but the webbings are darker on the bootleg one. And then we have the first Peter B. Parker alternate unmasked head, and again the original and the bootleg, and you can see that they really did a great job on this bootleg. The only main and huge difference is the fact that the eyes on the bootleg are kind of sunk in, and I'm not sure if that's something that can be customized and fixed. If you remove this inner piece, maybe you can get to those eyes and maybe push them a bit forward. But again, I feel like both of these look really good. I mean, the original is perfect, of course, but the bootleg one is still not bad. Here is the second alternate head sculpt, and again, the original looks much cleaner, much better, and the eyes are still a problem on the AliExpress bootleg, because you can see how much whiteness of the eyes you get on the original, while that is lost on the bootleg. But still, a great copy. And then we get a Peter Parker alternate head sculpt, and again, the eyes are the main issues. The hair is a bit softer than on the original. The original sculpt is sharp, while the bootleg is a little bit softer, and the tone of the paint is a bit darker on the bootleg. But again, other than the eyes being sunk in, I feel like the bootleg is close enough. Here is the comparison of two mug holding hands. Yeah, again, the original is much sharper, crisper, while the paint on the bootleg is really messy, especially on the fingers. Both mugs are empty, and here is the other side of the hand. Here are those dynamic open hands. This is the original and this is the bootleg. And then web shooting hands, the original and the bootleg, and here is the other side. And then wall crawling hands, the original and the bootleg. Here are the web holding hands. This is the original and this is bootleg. And again, differences in the way that webbings are painted. And then the fist or the newspaper holding hand, this is the original and this is the bootleg. And speaking of newspapers, I have to say that both of these guys come with an instruction sheet. On the left is the original instruction sheet and on the right is the bootleg. And other than the quality of the print, the difference is that the bootleg instruction sheet comes only with few instructions and doesn't come with the newspaper piece that the original comes with. So you don't get that newspaper accessory with the bootleg version. Just a heads up so that you know that. And then here is the comparison of the glasses. This is the original and this is the bootleg. The original glasses have a bit more shinier finish on them, while the bootleg is matte. And then here is the first ungloved hand, the original and the bootleg. The bootleg one is kind of messy. You can see this line here on the finger, while the original doesn't have that. And then the other ungloved hand, and again the bootleg one is kind of messy, while the original is clean. And then both of these guys come with those web effects, the longer one and then this one that kind of branches out. Both of these guys have that, and both of them come with a stand, so that's great. And so there it is. That was my comparison of the Sentinel Peter B Parker original and the bootleg from AliExpress. And what do I think? I think that of course the original is far superior, but if you are someone who can't afford or can't find the original anywhere online, this bootleg is still a nice option. With a little bit of modification on the neck joint, you can get a decent Peter B Parker knockoff that doesn't fall apart, looks kind of messy in comparison with the original, but if you don't have the original to compare it to, I'm sure you will be satisfied with this, because I know I was until I got the original one. This figure still has great range of articulation, it poses really well, you will have a lot of fun messing around with it. You still get all of the accessories minus the newspaper with the bootleg one, and even though the joint, like the elbow joint, looks kind of janky and the web lines are painted a bit darker than the original, I feel like this guy still looks good. So I hope that this comparison video helped you guys if you are looking to buy the original or the bootleg. And now I would really like to hear what you think. What are your thoughts on the original and the bootleg? Do you have one of them or do you have both of them? What are your thoughts on the quality of this bootleg? Let me know all of that down in the comments. Special thank you goes out to my supporters on Patreon. Thank you guys so much for supporting my work and for helping me to get some of these figures and to continue to make this content. And of course to all of the rest of you guys, thank you all so much for watching my video, for being here with me, and I'll see ya in the next one.